Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. Me, Chantelle. I always hear other hosts introduce themselves, and I always say to myself, I should actually do that. Me, Chantelle, on Aquarius Rising Africa. It's like as if people don't know me, but I just assume they all know me. I guess there are new people watching. So,
Mm,
yes, hello, everybody. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. Me, Chantelle, the host of the show, with the lovely Alice Pirola. Hello, Alice. How
Hello,
are you?
hello. How are you doing? Hostess with the mostest? Hostess with the mostest.
This
Yeah,
host is with the mostest what today? I don't even know what.
yeah,
Anyway,
definitely,
all good.
definitely. You
Yeah.
are
You're
you are
looking
really
particularly
good.
lovely, I have to say. You really are looking particularly lovely today.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, sorry, I'm just putting my phone on silent. So looking forward to hearing what you have to say today, because we're talking about the prison of OCD. Oh my goodness, I'm definitely a little bit OCD. I mean, ask my yoga students. It's hilarious. My yoga mat has to be straight.
Has to be.
And I have two mats on top of each other. I always work with two mats. So if those mats are not square and straight and exactly in the way, I
Mhm,
cannot even do my yoga. I mean, it's hilarious because that's one of the things yoga teaches you is to not to be so anal, right?
mhm.
But my one student the other day was chuckling so much because then I put my yoga mat down and I was doing something and I turned my back and then I turned around to go there she was busy straightening out my mat.
So she knows
I
you.
said, "Oh my God, am I that bad?"
So she knows your little discrepancies, and she knows.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, we had a good chuckle about it. I mean, we always laugh about it, right? In the class. So, okay, girls, grandma, you have to get her mat straight, and then we can get going.
Yeah. It is
Grandma.
it is definitely, I do call it the prison of OCD because it is a prison to live with these habitual contentious, all consuming feelings that you have to perform in a certain way. So we're going to break this wide open today, and
Listen, I
before.
agree with you, and I want to
Mhm,
just say something about what you're saying, which makes a lot of sense. You know, that these feelings that you hold inside of you, and I like the way you put that actually,
mhm,
that make you feel like you simply have to perform or do things in a certain way, otherwise you're not perfect.
mhm. It's really something. But
Wow.
before we start on that, I just want to have a mini chat, just a little mini chat on, because it does have to do with the mental health arena, which is my thing, my reason I'm here, and reason we're talking about mental health today. About the situation that happened in Maine. Did you hear about that?
Which one?
Okay. There was a soldier, I guess he was a
Yes,
special.
yes, I did. I did. Sorry, yes, he killed a whole lot of people, right?
Mm,
Yeah,
oh,
it
yeah.
was recent.
Yeah.
I heard about that. Yes, absolutely.
So the thing I want to talk about is, it's very controversial, and it's, I know this sounds ludicrous to say this, but it gives mental health a really bad name. Now, what does that mean, Alice? It gives mental health a bad name. It's not funny. I shouldn't be laughing. He killed 15 people and injured 18, and he was PTSD soldier. I think he was special ops. Don't quote me on that. But he had just come out of a psych ward, and he was heavily medicated in that psychiatric ward. And they sent him home with all these medications along with his guns. And I'm not saying I'm for or against guns or for or against medication. I have a very split conversation on all things, and that includes psychiatric wards. Not exactly for them, but he was hearing voices, which tends to lend itself to the fact that he's schizophrenic. And when you're schizophrenic, you see visions and hear voices telling you to do things. And so that's what he did. And he hauled off and did this. Now, something snapped inside his brain. It could have been the medication. It could have been the stress. It could have been the PTSD. He could have felt like he was back in, a service situation where he was in the military. I don't know what snapped him. I don't know what got him to do that. But I do want to bring it up because it does cause a lot of bad light to be shed on the mental health society in general, on people with mental health issues. And we tend to overgeneralize and call everybody, like everyone is schizophrenic, everyone is on meds, everyone is in a psych ward. So, I don't want to break it down to that, but it's just a really tragic thing. And I just wanted to send out prayers and just a lot of feelings towards those people that were hurt and their families and just the whole 9 yards. So do you want to weigh in on that?
It's so tragic because, as we know on this show, or on our channel, really, we deal with a lot of, obviously, we support quite a few vets. We have some military guys, in fact, Caleb Jade at the moment, who's started being on our show, has quite a story to tell when it comes to that. Now, here's someone that was in the highest black ops, secret, whatever the heck it is. He's going to share with us what he can. And not only did that, and I mean, if this guy, what you're saying, if he was also doing black ops and stuff like that, chances are he himself, because if we just look at Caleb's story, he was adopted, right? And he had the right bloodlines. And then he was taken up from the age of 4 into social services, or Catholic services rather. And then he was from there sold, and from the age of 4 or 5, the real abuse began. And he was a gateway kid. So they started him on the Gateway Project because he had special gifts. Then the Wild Hunt, right? Which, by the way, was the anniversary on Sunday. The Halloween Wild Hunt, when the veils are thin, full moon eclipse. It was very hectic energy flying around. You got to know. And the Wild Hunt now starts. So for those of you who don't know what the Wild Hunt is, please go and watch our interview with Caleb Jade. We need to be informed about these things. It is absolute. If you think these royals and these disgusting people hunting kids is bad, go and hear what they have to say. Caleb's stories.
It's horrifying. But like I say, it's something. One thing I could say on behalf of the mental health community, and I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a licensed anything. I am a survivor of mental illness. And the thing I want to say is please don't lump everybody into that same category and just feel that, that's the way mentally ill people are going to display, because it isn't.
No, sorry, what I still wanted to continue just to say with that is that, when we're dealing, and I'm really just saying this because I want to give context, because you cannot just see the end result of someone's actions and then judge that. I'm trying to explain to the viewers that there is a whole run-up. There's a lifetime of abuse.
Exactly.
A lifetime of abuse that these guys go through. They are put through the horrific. They are put through torture, through abuse, through the Gateway program, through things like the Wild Hunt. They are groomed and controlled and abused and beaten and sexually molested from early on. So, and then that all in training for top level positions in the military. Now we're going to hear from Caleb what type of, I know he obviously can't talk about everything, but as we go along, we're going to hear about what type of stories and what type of missions these guys are involved in. Already Caleb's told us about how they were hunting Nephilim giants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got to know what that means. And these guys, they're not blocked off, right? They come home and they've got to deal with that. They're not given any kind of decompressing or anything like that.
Decompressing.
So when we're looking at a guy like this, that the one that just shut up a whole lot of people, I blame the government.
Mm-hmm.
I blame the medical fraternity.
Yes.
Because that guy should have been treated very, very differently. You see, my point is these guys have probably been abused to the hilt. They've been tortured. As I said, you cannot take that away. More than anything, that's what gives them their PTSD. And then they'll be seemingly fine for a while, and something will just set them off.
And they'll snap. They snap.
And
it's like, what is the trigger? You don't know what the trigger was. It could have been anything.
Exactly.
That set him back. And
if you look at, and Caleb, and I mentioned Caleb here because this is a very similar story. He lost 4 children. He had to bury 4 babies. And that was the thing that triggered his PTSD.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that would trigger anybody into PTSD.
Honestly, I say these things and I get emotional because it's so sad. And this is what I say, these guys come back from the most horrific experiences. And there's some fucking Karen telling him what he must do with his life now. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're not adjusted into society. They're not given the mental health care that they needed. They pushed to a side and they are lost. Right. The government does not want them anymore because they've got too many secrets and they're now becoming a hazard. So now they have to either go into some kind of a mental ward. They love putting these people into mental wards, by the way.
That's why they over-medicate them into zombies to the point
there we go. That's what we're dealing with here. That's what we're dealing with that guy. So instead of looking at the guy as the bad one, really it's the government, it's the military, and these are the things that we need to start looking at. It's not the person. It's how did that person get to be that way? And that's what I keep saying on these shows. And that's why I want you guys to listen to Caleb's stuff, because if there's anybody who's speaking deep, deep truths right now, and he's got nothing to lose, he's not working for anyone, he's not associated from anyone, he's on the run, he's been in hiding for a very long, couple of years. So these are the people, and when you hear this man speak, you're going to hear his voice has been very affected.
Oh yeah, because he said he was down underneath in the deep crevices of the earth, which is insane. It's incredulous. But that was the message I wanted to bring before we started into our topic, because people do tend to overgeneralize, and especially with this topic that we're doing today, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, the prison of obsessive compulsive disorder. And people say, oh, you're so OCD, and we were laughing about your yoga mat, but it's true. They're going to say everybody's OCD or everybody's PTSD or blah, 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 blah. So we're going to dig deep into this. And so the first thing I want to say in opening up with it is that the prefrontal cortex of the brain, it's called the ventral, and the striatum is it affects decision making, and intense decision making is affected by OCD, and it starts as an infant. If there's abuse and there is trauma, it starts as an infant that these parts of the brain are affected. They can actually see the lesions in the brain of a person that they've scanned that has OCD, where thereby these places were affected in the brain. So that's something very important. The other thing, unless God heals it, you're going to have it for the rest of your life. It is a incurable. That's what they call it. They say it's incurable. And I've suffered with OCD my entire life. So I could say that's pretty true. And I remember when it set in. I remember when specifically it set into my brain as a child, and the things I used to do. So we'll get into that, but let's talk about, there's very many components to it. And so, Shanti, I'm just going to throw them out and we can discuss and go into this. Okay, so it's an anxiety disorder that is very life disruptive with repetitive thoughts and or actions that are compulsory. It will not subside unless you have the compulsion relieved. So it's a compulsion to do something. So one of the very first things we're going to talk about that brings forth OCD is hoarding. Hoarding. And
Hoarding.
Hoarding.
Like hoarding, as in
gathering stuff and having a whole bunch of stuff.
I've never even made that connection, but it makes, as you say, it's perfect sense. Of course, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk and use my mom, which my poor mother. I love you, mommy. I love you.
Mommy too. Can we get our mothers here?
Yeah, she's 95 years young, and she's got more energy than I do, and she's just amazing. However, my father abused the crap out of her in their marriage. He was extremely domestic violence. And so he was also homosexual pedophile. So if you know my story, that's where the trauma comes in. And my mother was a hoarder like you wouldn't believe. So she had, up in our attic, we had racks of, she would have clothing from one end of the house to the other end of the house, racks and racks and racks of, like Macy's department store. Then she would have purses, shoes, and toys, everything imaginable. We didn't ever have to shop for a birthday party. If we were going to a birthday party, you just go up into the attic and you get a toy and you bring it down. We had everything up there. It was like a playground.
So hang on, where did these toys come from? If you're saying that you didn't have to shop,
buying them, compulsory buying. Compulsory buying. And the thing is, she used to say, because, I'm sorry, Mom, because she was shopping at Goodwill and Salvation Army, it wasn't hurting anything because she was getting it cheapo, cheapo, cheapo. She would buy huge bags of clothing and just bring them home. You know, they have the $5 bags back then in the 1970s. And she would bring them back home and just like literally, you would be shocked to see this. Then every drawer, every closet, the refrigerator, I can't even explain to you. Our home was immaculate. Our home was always immaculate. You could eat off the floor. But if you opened a drawer or you opened a closet, it was like all hell broke loose because all this stuff would come pouring out. You know, it's like, ah. And
was she just buying, or you see some of these people that hoard and their places are disgusting, and I don't mean to be rude, okay, but they don't clean, they just keep shoving things. Is this the same kind of thing?
It is the same exact kind of thing, except there's two kinds of hoarders. It's hoarders that you see and notice, where they'll have stacks and stacks and piles of everything all over the house, and you can't even move through the house. And they are very, very sick when it comes to that point. God bless them. They're very sick. And then like my mother, she was a secretive hoarder. And so she would hide everything and, have it so that nobody would know about it. Nobody would ever guess. No one would ever guess. I'll tell you a story I tell about her refrigerator. Well, she would keep food and keep food and keep food, and it's rotted and it's terrible and it's way past its expiration date. So one time when I was in my early 20s, I decided I am going to clean out my mother's refrigerator once and for all. I thought this was going to save it. I really did. And I cleaned out the refrigerator. I put everything in a trash bag and I brought it out to the trash bucket outside in the hot Florida sun. And it sat there all day till she got home from work. When she got home from work and she saw that bag was out there, she went out there and got that bag and put it back into the refrigerator. That is a hoarder. That is a hoarder. And she grew up in the Great Depression era. So everything is useful. Everything you're going to need it eventually. You're going to have it. But that is exactly how I grew up. My brother and I grew up with that. So that's hoarding. The next thing is what you were talking about, Shanti, which with your little yoga mat, which is you are hell-bent on having things a certain way. Everything has to be just so. The furniture has to be just so. The yoga mat has to be just so. And these are objects, typically objects. And if not, I remember my girlfriend growing up, we were best of friends and we never fought. But I remember she used to have her hairbrush, her mirror, and her comb on her dresser. And if I changed the order of those elements on her dresser, she would freak on me. She would go absolutely crazy. You put my brush first. You know, it's like, oh my goodness. And so everything has to be just so. And this is a compulsion that is often accompanied by depression, compulsive shopping, and also, believe it or not, a tic disorder, which a tic disorder is some kind of a malfunction where you can have a
tic disorder.
Yeah, a tick in your eye. You can have a tick with your neck, or God forbid. It's really sad, and it's very hard to see people that suffer with that. But that can also set in with tic disorder if you have that.
Wow.
Okay.
I like Amanda Streeter. I like your comment here, actually.
What'd
I don't
she
know if
say?
you can see it. Oh my goodness, this house we are cleaning out now was so disgusting. Cat poo on the oof. But it's amazing. I can imagine when you actually working in a place like that, that must be very rewarding, right? Because that's something, you know what? And this is so funny mentioning that. I mean, I'm very relaxed. I like my things to be clean. I have my beautiful bongi that comes in once a week and does a big, she cleans my place. And the rest of the time, I wash my dishes, I sweep, make sure, do a little reset every night. It's important for me that I start the day just feeling fresh. So I'll go often my yoga, go for a walk or whatever, just start my day in a good way, because that kind of sets the pace for the days, right? But it's actually very interesting. Again, I watch there's certain things I find myself watching, like on YouTube, little reels or shorts or something. And funnily enough, one of the things I've watched quite a bit of is exactly what Amanda is talking about here. People who go into these hoarders' houses and that are really, really, really bad, right? And they start cleaning. The trauma these people go through,
it's a lot of trauma.
When they start losing their possessions, right, or whatever it is you want to call it, is on another level. I mean, you'd swear their baby's being stolen from them.
Yes.
That's how they can sometimes carry on, right? I mean, what's worse than for a mother than having her baby stolen from her? And I'm equating that, because it's almost that, and it's like your mum, taking the trash can and putting it back in the refrigerator just because she didn't want to lose that control. Right. And it's all about control, really, right?
It is.
It is. When people have control freaks. I mean, this is a control freak, right? On another level. So when people become control freaks, it's really but the fact that there's so much out of control within them, right?
Right.
And especially when you're talking about like Alice yourself, your mom, who was with your dad in that way and abused and what have you. That's the only bit of control she has, is to have, I mean, let's say, call it her home, right? Where she could have a say over what food gets thrown away or not.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
That was
She had no say with my father.
Exactly.
None.
Exactly. And it's very important to look at these things, to look at the psychology behind when people have issues like this, because I think if all of us can actually, let's say someone out there has an OCD mom who's a hoarder or an uncle or something and thinking, oh my God, this is so disgusting, I want to run away. Maybe approach it from the angle that we're approaching it now, just understand what is the background, what is the trauma, because there's always trauma with stuff like that. And instead of looking
every case of OCD can be traced back to trauma.
Well, there you go.
Every case of OCD. So the next one, I'm going to tell you as we go along if I have it. So I'm going to confess. So the next one is compulsive counting. I will raise my hand.
Counting.
Counting. And what this means is I count in my mind I would say the majority of the day I'm counting. And this has to do with if I'm washing my hands, if I'm washing my hair, and we'll get more into that later. But this is an obsession to count things. And it has to be an odd number or an even number. You could have a lucky number, an unlucky number. And the thing is, if you mess it up, you have to go back and start all over again. And this is a prison, because I will tell you that when it comes, and I'm going to talk about this later on, but like, for instance, washing my hair, I have a whole routine I have to go through in the shower with how many times I have to wash, how many times I have to rinse, how I have to rinse. The conditioner has to go. It's very hard. Now, I've broken a lot of patterns. I've broken a ton of patterns. As a matter of fact, my doctor, my psychiatrist, just really revels in the fact that I've broken so many patterns. But this is one that stayed with me, because I used to know when my father was coming home and he was walking down the street, and I knew what was going to happen when he entered that door. I used to pace out and count steps when I was 3, 4, 5 years old. I was a little kid, and it would be like 25 steps this way, 25 steps that way. And then he's not going to hit me. He's not going to hit Brian. He's not going to beat the crap out of mom tonight. He's not going to sexually abuse us. So it began when I was a child. The counting began when I was a child. So, let's see.
Yeah, look, that counting is quite something as well. And as you're speaking, Alice, it's interesting, isn't it? Interesting as well. Now, I'm not sure if there's a connection, but it's something I want to think about. When parents, before they tell you, okay, I'm going to count to 5 or 3 or whatever, and then you're going to get your ass whipped, So, actually, maybe that's not such a bad thing. I think that's really just giving kids kind of like a leeway,
A warning, yeah.
Yeah. I remember my dad always says, I'm counting to 3. We got there and then we scattered, right? But it's like when you're saying in that traumatic situation, yeah, I can imagine the seconds.
Because it's a prison.
Yes, but I'm trying to figure out like the counting. 1, 2, 3. Oh no, 1. It's like something that you can hold on to, right? It's something that takes your mind tangibly away from what is happening. But at the same time, it's so traumatic, right? That the whole counting thing is associated to your trauma. So it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come, close your eyes. I'm running. We're playing hide and seek. This is a very different. It's yeah. No, I can't find the words, but I'll get them. I'm
I
just
was
saying.
I was a bridesmaid in my best friend's wedding, and I was back then when I was in my early 20s, 30s, and teenage years. Forget about it. The counting was so bad, especially with there's hand washing, there's hair washing, there's body washing, but it's that feeling that you can't get rid of the dirt of, in my case, of my father, touching me or being around me. So that was what I was trying to wash it off. And I was getting ready for her wedding and I couldn't stop washing my hair, and my scalp actually started bleeding. And so I had to call her into the bathroom. I, Sandy, come in here and help me, and I just said, just hold my hands. And just even thinking about it makes me want to go into tears because it was so, it was so bad. I mean, I'm bleeding in my scalp because I can't stop washing my hair. And I would go from the shower to the sink, to the tub, to the sink, to the shower, to the tub. I mean, it was over and over and over again. Now, I was 23, 24 years old, and that's how bad it was. I mean, it was really horrendous for me. So I'm just being open and
Yes.
honest with you guys that you don't know the battles some people are fighting. And that goes for frequent hand washing, use of hand sanitizer. It also has to do with other things that go with this are touching things like a doorknob or an appliance or a phone or dishes or clothing where you have to wash them constantly and or touch them constantly. So people will have phobias, like their phone is always dirty. They have to clean their phone constantly or clean the doorknob constantly, whatever the case is.
Yes, no. And it's like also, let's say we're leaving the house and you will make sure all plugs are switched off or unplugged, but yet you will make sure that you run back 5 times. I had a friend like that. Then I said to her,
That's
I
checking. That's my next one. It's called
yeah,
checking. Checking.
yeah, my friend, when we used to go somewhere and then I have to check, I said, babe, you've just done it. No, but I'm sure. I said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with you. So how we used to work after that was like, if she went and she felt, I said, come, let's go. And we were at the car about to leave. Oh my God, it is off, but you want to go check? Yes. Okay, come, I'll go with you. And then we'll do a thorough check. So then that for her was a good thing because she knew that I remembered that that is off, that is off, that is off, that is off. I knew which of the plugs I had to go check. So it became, and she's a very good friend of mine. But we turned it into a fun thing eventually. I'd say, okay, which side of the house am I checking before we get in the car or after? So we would.
Checking is real. It comes from a deep-seated sense of irresponsibility. You're afraid you're going to be irresponsible, so you're
Yeah.
constantly going back to check to make sure you're being responsible. So it's from a deep-seated fear of irresponsibility. That's where that actually stems from. And maybe growing up, your parents traumatized you by saying, "Oh, we can't count on you. You never on time. You never do this. You never do that." And maybe that was inbred into her brain, and she
Yeah.
just became that person. The next one is a very scary one. Thoughts of violence. Thoughts of violence. And this is violence that's going to happen to you, people that have 8 to 10 locks on the door, or they can't sleep with the lights off, and you're constantly looking to see, like, is somebody going to stab me in the shower? And so you're opening the shower curtain to look. You're living in constant fear that somebody's going to harm you. And then the other flip side to that is constant fear that you're going to harm somebody else. That is another one. And I've never experienced that, but I have experienced feeling that I'm physically going to be harmed. And so when I was living in foster care, the guys would come in at night and sexually assault us. And we used to wrap the wire of the radio around the doorknob so that if they opened the door, the radio would fall and hit the door and wake us up. So, you know.
Hang on, where was this in? I mean, I know you were taken into foster care, and I know, I think that was about 12, but can you expand on that particular, who's these guys and who were you with?
Foster brothers, sons and husbands of the foster parents.
How many kids were you in the house?
I switched houses, golly. I must have switched houses 12, 13 times. So it was all different numbers at all different times.
And did it happen at every single foster care that you went to?
No. Typically, there was physical and emotional abuse at every foster home that I went to, but the sexual abuse was specifically more or less at 2 or 3 of the places. And you just got used to it. I mean, some of the girls would get pregnant, and remember, this was back in the 1970s when I grew up, and they would just take them and they would be shuffled off. We'd never see them again. Once they went pregnant, you know, that was it. Never saw them again. Some of them, a lot of them, God bless them, would commit suicide. A lot of them.
Well, that's exactly, I mean, we're talking about that military PTSD as well. They rely on that, don't they? I'm telling you, they rely on that. These people rely on that. And it wouldn't even surprise me if that, now I know with high-level military, there is the suicide, whatever it is. These guys, are they given the I'm not sure what they call it. And I know someone was telling me a while ago, and I can't remember actually, but they are given triggers to suicide themselves. And I know that would be either drinking themselves to death or really just because they then isolate themselves, right? They completely isolate themselves from society, and they're now dangerous and they're volatile, and they've got all this blood on their hands, and there's just nothing left for them to live. Boom, you go. It's crazy.
These are kids that are lost, abandoned by their parents. These are children that don't have love. They don't have, physical touch. If you don't have physical touch, you'll do anything to get it sometimes, so it's like that. But that's another one. Thoughts of violence. I wanted to see here. Oh, performance rituals. This is in your head. You're constantly repeating a phrase or a prayer or a mantra or something, trying to replace a bad image with a good image. And you're never really connecting with what is happening to you. Okay. So you may be physically, it's a type of escapism. It's a type of dissociation. You may be physically getting beat. And take the case of Sinead O'Connor. All right. We talked about Sinead O'Connor, who we believe Shanti and I do. And I mean, that's our opinion that she took her own life. She was seriously abused by her mother, who would beat her with brooms and just all kinds of stuff and kick her and do all kinds of horrible sexual things to her. You disassociate in your mind and you say something over and over and over again, like say it's the Lord's Prayer or whatever it is, to try to get your mind off of what's happening so that you're not in the situation. And you never actually grasp what's happening to you. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well?
Totally. Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
All right. The next one is avoidance behavior, and this is a coping mechanism to avoid triggers of people, places, and things. And that means that you don't want to be triggered into your OCD. A friend was telling me her son has OCD, and he has to have his food a certain way. He has to have the table set, has to have certain things, just right when he's eating, etc. And he will not get a girlfriend or go out or have friends, because a lot of stuff we do when we go out with each other is we eat, don't we? We go out to eat. And so he will isolate and self-isolate himself because he does not want to be triggered into his OCD. So that's self-isolating because you don't want to trigger. So that's the other prison cell, is you don't want to go out because you don't want people to see what you're doing.
Exactly. So you become a hermit, right? Yeah. You become a hermit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really hard because the parents can't get them to go out. They can't force them to go out. And especially if they're an adult, what are you going to do? So they self-inflict that isolation. The next one is constant reassurance. Oh, I got that one. Constant reassurance.
I think that's a human condition. Let's face facts.
Yes, it is. But when you get obsessive about it, my husband used to call me, and he still does sometimes, the pundit of redundancy. I would ask him, did I do okay? Was I all right? Did I screw up? Did I embarrass myself? Like if we go out to a social situation, did I do anything wrong? I'm asking him over and over and over again. Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? And we'll be in the car going home from an event. And then 2 minutes later, honey, did I do anything wrong? Did I screw up? Did I make fun of anybody? Did I do anything? And he's like, no.
Can you just show?
I know, and I can't stop until it goes over and over in my mind. So that's constant reassurance. The next one is this is memory recall. This is believing wholeheartedly, compulsory, that you have to be able to recall every single speck of a situation. Have you ever seen people that hoard newspapers or magazines or articles or
actually kind of. I mean, I've never thought about it as hoarding, but makes sense. Yeah.
They would have newspapers piled high all throughout their house, stacks and stacks of newspapers, because let's say an event happened. Take the shooting that just happened, the massacre in Maine, and they want every detail. They want to know every speck of it. It has to be exactly right. And if they can't get it right, they're going to go to that newspaper and pull it out. They can go to a stack over here that's 10 feet deep, and I'm exaggerating, and pull out, a newspaper and say, on this day, this happened, blah, 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 blah. And so it's like they're very compulsory with their memory recall. That's another prison.
Prison. And again, it's like that having to remember and recall each and every detail. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, then you failed, or you repeat yourself. I would imagine that then becomes someone who repeats themselves a lot. Mm-hmm. And, or like tells that maybe can be quite a little bit tedious, I would imagine, because, no one really wants to hear each and every detail about every story. The green window pane with a pink handle really has no relevance to the situation, right? But I mean, and I can absolutely see how that can be such a meticulous way that people need to be understood. And I would say that is probably a fear of not being understood or a fear of not being heard, like, mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I would look at that in terms of, or just being ignored, right?
Yeah,
plain and simple ignored.
Yeah. The next one is really hard. This is excoriation disorder. And what that has to do with is skin picking, hair pulling, pulling out your eyelashes, pulling out your eyebrows,
Oh, that creeps me out. Oh,
cutting, anything like that. I have a friend, I'm not lying, she would take a magnifying glass and go onto every hair follicle on her body with a pair of tweezers and pull out meticulously, pull out hairs from every follicle on her body. I mean, hours doing this. Can you leave the house yet? Can you leave the house yet? No, I'm not done. I'm not done. And
oh
her
my gosh.
family would watch her do this.
Just to pluck my eyebrows is a pain. Pluck.
This is they will pull their hair out. They'll have little bald spots throughout their hair, head. They'll, pluck their eyebrows. And when you're doing it, you don't even think about it. You don't even think that it's happening. Now, I saw a documentary on one girl, a young teenager. This was horrible. So get the kids out of the room. She had a fear of her excrement. And so what she would do is she would take a bottle brush, like a brush that goes in and cleans bottles. And she would actually clean out her anus with this in a bathtub full of water all day. And the bathtub would be filled with blood. I actually saw this documentary, and the parents were besides themselves.
Oh gosh, I can't. No.
She was killing herself. She was literally killing herself, and she wanted every speck of excrement out of there. It couldn't be in there, and so she would have to dig and dig and dig. And she's crying and sobbing while she's doing this. People don't understand how far OCD can go.
No, absolutely. I totally get it. Yeah. I mean, that's like on another level.
And
I mean, I know it's
like somewhere excoriation disorder, when it has to do with OCD, is really hard. It is so compulsory. People may pick their nails, they may bite their nails, whatever the case is. The thing is it compulsory? Do you have to perform it? The next one is excessive fear or guilt, a pathological attempt to cleanse away any thought of impurity or impulse that triggers guilt. And so that's another one where you're never clean enough. That would fall under the excoriation disorder too, but you're doing it because of fear and guilt. The next one is sexual obsessions, forbidden thoughts and or actions of sexual abuse that would include abusing somebody through incest, bestiality, or sex with a minor. And this is a compulsion. Incest is a compulsion. It's OCD.
Okay, I can understand why. I can fully understand why incest is something that continues along the family bloodlines, so to speak, because obviously the sins of the father bestowed upon the son. So, when the wound has not been healed, then it's mostly carried forward, right? But the question I have is that how does incest become a compulsion? I mean, why would the word compulsion be in there? Because I have a specific way of thinking about compulsion. It's something that drives you and that you can't stop. Okay, so this clearly, right, no normal father or mother is going to rape their own child, right? So there's definitely a problem there.
Have you ever heard somebody who is in incest? What am I trying to say? Have you ever heard somebody who is a child molester confess?
Yes. I know some child molesters. I've worked with them. Yeah.
Okay. So my father, and he would say to me later in life when he was getting Alzheimer's disease and he was losing his mind basically, but he would say, I had to have the children. I had to have children. It's compulsion. It's an obsession.
Yeah. And I can identify with what he's saying there, because it's like it's not even him though, right? The way I see it, it's not even him. He's made, he's obviously, because of his own pain, he's created that space for whatever, and not ever gone for healing, right? He's created that space for whatever entity or energies to work through and drive that obsession.
Yeah.
Right. So I would imagine at the end of his life, when that entity is not even around anymore in his own human brain, that would be the imprint that's been left. I had to. And Alzheimer's is so interesting to me, like dementia as well. It's like they go back to, the old people go back to being children.
Yes.
And they become very honest.
Yes.
And they like blurt out, like a kid will blurt out their stuff. And I mean, I remember my son was 3 and I was smoking. And my mother was saying the one day, oh, how much she hates smoking. And my son looked at her and he says, well, my mummy smokes cigarettes.
Well, if you want them to say it at 3 years old, they'll say it.
And my mother says, what? Where? He goes, there by her house.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, you so bust me to dear. Dear is what we call my mother, right? I said, you so bust me.
Oh, wow.
I never let him put that down. But anyway, that's a joke. But I'm saying that, like, as the old people get older, it's like that, right? It's like they blurt out their truth.
My father was confessing everything to me. I actually took care of him during the first stages of Alzheimer's before we put him into a nursing home. And I forgave him for what he did and went back and lived with him and cut his food and kept his house clean and did all kinds of stuff, trying to be having a relationship with a father that never really existed, to be honest with you. But he was very, very transparent in everything that he had done towards the end. The next one I'm going to talk about is fear of germs and dirt, germophobia.
I just want to tell you, sorry, Alice, I've got load shedding at the moment and my laptop is running low, so we've probably got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So germophobics, Howie Mandel, Donald Trump is a germaphobe, and it's something that you can look to break through. And now actually Howie Mandel and Donald Trump can shake hands with people and hug people, but that's something else. And last of all, but not least, is magical thinking OCD, which is another one that I have, which is if you wear a certain particular item, a piece of jewelry, a piece of clothing, or do something, it's going to magically protect you from harm. So that's magically thinking that you're giving power to this bracelet, that this is going to protect me if I go out and drive in the car today. It's magical thinking OCD.
Totally. Yeah. So you kind of like already know, like, so, I'm protected. Yeah. You keep protecting yourself. Yeah, I get it.
I want to finish, if we're closing off here. and say that many of these compulsions can be broken by facing them head on. You face them head on. It's called exposure treatment. And you do the thing that you don't want to do, and you don't do the thing you want to do, which is the compulsion. And that is exactly how you get through it. I have been able to break tons of OCD off of me, thank you, Lord Jesus, through, just prayer and repetition of not doing it. I mean, some of it stays with me, but I'm telling you, 90% of it has been broken off of me.
I think, definitely. You talk about facing that, and you say exposure therapy. For me, it's really, this is what I would call doing your shadow work as well.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of this, we do a lot of, when we work with situations like this, a lot of healing, understanding, and it's always going back to the beginning, like you say. I mean, we've already ascertained that every trauma, especially a deep-seated one, is coming from a very young place, and usually childhood or whatever. Another one that we didn't talk about was actually cutting, and I think that probably goes into the same category as picking. And
that's excoriation.
Yeah, that cutting. I mean, I deal with a lot in my time. I've dealt with a lot of teenagers that have been cutting, and it's really, the thing that they say a lot is that pain they feel is such a release for the pain on the inside. It's like it helps get that pain out. So, we all know teenagers are very emotional and hormonal and up and down. So at the best of times, you're going to have a problem. And that is why I think, it's such an important thing. It's not just about the teenage. It's about what the teenager's been exposed to that gives them a healthy or unhealthy teenagehood, right? So again, we have to look at these things. We've got to go back and understand what that child has been through. And really, a pill does not help this. And I just want to say this, guys, to every single person out there. I don't care how many pills you take. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be taking them. Let's just be clear about that. If you're on meds, you're on meds. But the thing that's really going to heal you is love, peace, and forgiveness. So the love that you feel from yourself, the people in your family, the touching, the healing, the holding, the tenderness, forgiveness on all sides, that is like God's magic balm. That's for sure.
Right.
The love, I always see the love is like, when someone starts feeling love on the inside, it's like it pushes up all that pussiness, all those nasty wounds, and it allows them to be exposed. And then I think that's the same what you're saying, exposure therapy, right? So it allows that.
My husband got me this ring, Shanti, that I don't know if you can see it, but it's a hug. It's two hands.
Beautiful.
It's two hands hugging like this. And what it means is that he's always there to hug me and hold me through it.
That is so beautiful.
In some ways, it means more to me than my wedding band. You know what I'm saying? It's just, he got that for me 2 weeks ago, and it's very, very, very special. And if your family or anyone can empathize, my motto is empathize, educate, advocate, having to do with mental illness. Empathize, educate, advocate. And if you can empathize with the person that's going through this literal hell, think of these things that we just spoke about, gang. It is literal hell to go through. And you are in a prison, a self-inflicted prison, but you're in a prison. And so,
Absolutely.
If you can have a family member or friend or anybody that will walk you through this, that's the thing. That's the thing right there.
And face it, the first step is to acknowledge that I'm afflicted by this. The first thing we have to do is admit or acknowledge.
Right.
Hell yeah, that sounds a bit like me. And then we make a decision. Decision is the most important thing in anyone's life, because as long as you're a fence sitter, you're losing so much energy. You're a leg there and a leg there. And you don't quite know what to do.
That's true.
Indecision is the thief of all joy. I'll tell you that much. The minute you've made a decision, even if it's not one that you like or you love, but it's something you have to do. But the minute you make that decision, you then move towards creating whatever outcome you're wanting there. So the decision is the most important thing, to acknowledge and then decide. And once you've done that, the right person, healer, whatever it is, will appear for you. And that is what it is, you know, guys. I mean, we're all on this journey together, healing. We've all got different afflictions. We've all got different traumas in our lives. But it's really good to know that we are all just walking each other home, right? And that's really what it's about. And I love all you ladies in the chat today. And I think there's one gentleman in there, Paul. Paul, it's always good to see you here amongst all the thorn, amongst all these lovely roses, always the other way around, whatever. Yeah.
So I hope this helped somebody today. And if it's helped you or somebody you know that is going through this, perhaps you can help them more now that you're educated a little better.
And really do some research on this stuff. You know, it might not be you that has the issue, but I'll guarantee you in your family or in your unit, you have at least 2 or 3 people running around with these issues, at least.
Oh, definitely.
You wear it or not. Okay, my PC wants to say cheers. Okay, everybody, I love you madly, and I would take this for another 15 minutes, but now that, because you have to know that South Africa are the new World Cup rugby champions. We won, we beat New Zealand today, yeah. But for 2 weeks, we didn't have load shedding because rugby was on, right? Now that the rugby's on, we've got like stage 11 load shedding again, making up for the 2 weeks we didn't have. It's so pathetic, honestly. Anyway, let me not get stressed about that, because otherwise I might pop a coronary, and I don't want to do it. Because I tell you, this can make one pop a coronary. Anyway, guys, God bless you all. Thank you so much for joining us. And I really loved the show today again, Alice. Such a pleasure to always have you. And I'll try not to be so OCD with my yoga mat.
Okay. Thank you, Shanti.
Okay, guys. Lots of love. Take good care. Like, share, subscribe, please.
Okay.
Share, guys.